Welcome to the Student Ministry Podcast. My name is Steve Cullum, and this is episode 72 of the Student Ministry Podcast. Thank you so much for being here for another episode. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. Welcome to the podcast. We have 71 episodes before this. Would encourage you to check out. But if you are back again, maybe you've been listening from the very beginning, or just for the last several episodes, thank you so much for being here. We just want to encourage you to subscribe and share this with other youth pastors, other youth workers out there who enjoy hearing conversations with other youth workers or episodes like today. Today, we're going to be just diving into some programming updates and giving a few stories from this summer, from my ministry and my experience. It's something that I've tried to do over the last couple of years, is just kind of give you an annual update about what's going on in the life of our ministry here at LifeBridge Christian Church in Longmont, Colorado, what kind of changes I've been going through, making within the ministry, and what God's been doing. So today is one of those episodes. I'm just going to be telling some stories, but also giving you a little bit of update on some programming shifts and things that we did over the summer and that we're planning on doing this fall. Actually, as you're probably hearing this podcast, it's going to be right before we kick off our fall programming. And so, this is what we're going to be doing this fall. We'll get into all of that very soon. But before we jump into any of those stories, any of those changes and things like that, I want to thank the sponsors of this episode of the Student Ministry Podcast. Our first sponsor is G-Shades. It's a youth ministry curriculum and teaching strategy focused on helping students see everyday life situations through the lens of the gospel. G-Shades has options to fit everyone. With 3 plans to choose from, this curriculum gives you the resources you need to do what you want to do better. Do you need message outlines, a discussion guide, and a game? That's just $16 a month. Looking for a higher production value, including bumper videos, Instagram devotionals, and parent guides? That's $25 a month. Do you want affordable youth ministry video curriculum that will help you increase your online reach during the pandemic? G-Shades has you covered for only $36 a month. You will not find a youth ministry video curriculum at that price point anywhere else. G-Shades does an excellent job of not just teaching students the typical things that we teach them in youth group, but allowing them to see every life situation that they go through the lens of the gospel. G-Shades creator Mike Haynes has actually been on the podcast for episodes 32 and 55. So if you'd like to learn more about Mike, you can check out both of those episodes. So head over to gshades.org, that's GSHADES.org, to download Season 3 of G-Shades Youth Ministry Curriculum, and be sure to use the promo code TSMPOD, that's for the Student Ministry Podcast, so TSMPOD at checkout to receive an extra 10% off your order. G-Shades, seeing life through the lens of the gospel. Our other sponsor is MenHub Youth, which was actually developed by a fellow youth pastor. MenHub Youth helps you store and track your student, staff, and parent info, as well as attendance for your events. There are a lot of features, but today I want to talk to you about the MenHub portal. If you want a seamless way to connect with your parents, students, push announcements, collect RSVPs, chat with your people, and quickly be able to send the right message to the right people, you've got to get the MenHub portal add-on. Your parents and students can get MenHub portal for free and use your portal code and ministry password to connect and get ministry-specific two-way communication in one centralized location. On its own, the app is only $5 on iOS or Android, and you can use it forever on that one device without ever paying any more. But if you want to sync your database across multiple devices or with your leaders, you can sign up for MenHub Sync service and support the Student Ministry Podcast by visiting menhubsync.com/SMP MINHUB for Student Ministry Podcast. That's MINHUBSYNC.com/SMP. You can find the links to both G Shades and MINHUB in our podcast show notes. Thank you so much to G Shades and MINHUB for sponsoring this episode of the Student Ministry Podcast. Well, as I said earlier, we're going to talk about all these changes and stories and things that have happened in kind of an annual update here on the podcast. If you want to jump back to episode 60, that was the one we did in 2020. And that just kind of gave an update on our programming and what we were planning on doing for last school year. And just a quick update on that is it actually went really well. We had a lot of challenges that a lot of youth ministries across the country and I think around the world also had, dealing with COVID and how to come back after a lot of the quarantine time. And we had a bunch of students that weren't comfortable coming back yet, and we had some leaders that weren't comfortable coming back yet. So how to manage that was really, really difficult. And I think that was one of the most challenging things of last year, was trying to figure out how to have some semblance of regular youth group and small groups and things like that in the middle of uncertainty that was just surrounding us all the time. And it's not really gotten any better this year. We're just a little more experienced with it. And I think we have some more people that are comfortable being there. They're vaccinated, or they're just more comfortable with how things are going on and everything. And that we've learned how to kind of navigate that a little better now. So I'm not as anxious going into this school year as last school year, because we're just a little more experienced with it. Doesn't mean we're perfect at it by any means, but I think all of us are a little more experienced with it now, having dealt with this for the last 18 to 20 months at this point. But last year we made the switch to do large group with all of our students together on Sunday nights once a month. And then we did small groups the rest of the month on those remaining Sunday evenings. And we were able to shift our ministry from our Sunday morning, what we used to do, and kind of split ministry between Sunday morning, Sunday evening, and all these different things. We were able to actually shift everything to Sunday evening and do our programming in that way. And so we ran it throughout the whole year. We had to make a lot of shifts with leaders, not, like I said, not being able to be there all the time, or not feeling comfortable, and things like that. And so we did have to make some changes around that, and had to be very, very flexible and patient. And so we did have, for a time, we had like all of our middle school small groups, like the girls' small groups, all met together, because we only had so many leaders that felt comfortable being there. And we had to be able to make sure our internet at the church was good, because we were trying to do students that were online and in person. And we did dabble around with having a couple groups that were only online for those middle school students that felt more comfortable being online. We tried a bunch of different things. And finally, we just settled. I think a lot more people were comfortable. And so we've finally gotten to the way of doing things was mostly in person, but giving students an opportunity to tune in online or participate online. And that's kind of how we decided to go about the whole hybrid sort of situation. And we also tried to amp up what we did online. We found out that a lot of our students were not connecting with our worship services that were streamed online. Like, their families may be tuning into the large church, the overall worship service that we have at our church on Sunday mornings. But for youth group worship services, those once a month large groups, students just weren't tuning in at all. And maybe one or two. And so we stopped doing that, and we actually just recorded them, and then tried to take the messages, either chop them down to certain sections, or did like quick recaps or things like that, and posted those. And those actually got more traction because they were made more for social media. And we actually got a little more interaction with those kind of things. So we're going to try to do that a little more moving forward, and explore some other options with our online stuff. in the summer, we actually made some different changes and decided to do everything at the church this year, which was a little weird, but we had really gained a lot of momentum over last school year. And we really didn't want to risk possibly killing that or changing it by going to the park or moving off site or anything like that. And so we decided to have everything at the church. But what we decided to do was kind of space out what we did and kind of alternate each week. And so one week we'd have a worship time with the students that looked pretty much like a normal worship service, large group, everything. But then on the alternating weeks, we had activities. And so we had things like barbecue, we had laser tag, we had Nerf war, we had extreme bingo, things like that were kind of every other week. And then the alternate weeks were worship. So we kind of bounced back and forth throughout the summer, and it actually worked really well. We got a lot of traction, especially around those activities, which is a change. I think in the past, those kind of activities haven't really worked for us in terms of outreach. It's something that youth groups have been doing for years and years, but they hadn't been working for us in terms of outreach, but they did work this summer, and we saw a lot of new students, and that was really exciting. And so that was what we did throughout the summer. And then this school year, we are going to be kind of just taking the next evolution of what we did last school year. So we're going to continue to do large group worship nights on the first Sunday of the month. But the rest of the weeks, we are going to do small groups. But the difference this year is that we're going to be splitting middle school and high school for the beginning. So last year, we had everyone together for a brief time of sharing announcements and kind of going over the basic idea of what they would be talking about in their small groups. And then we'd send them off. And so on the average night, our whole night is like an hour and a half long. And so for the most part, most groups got about 60 minutes in small groups. And what we realized is, as many of you know, that's way too long for most middle school groups. But it was pretty good for high school groups. And so what we're going to be doing this year is we're going to be splitting those groups in the very beginning. And so middle school is going to go to one side of the church. High school is going to go to the other side of the church. And they're going to have a brief time together at the very beginning. It also is going to help them kind of have some identity as their individual youth groups as well. We did a lot of stuff together last school year and over the summer, but this fall and this spring, we're going to be doing some more things as separate groups. Not that it's bad to have them all together, but we're going to kind of try to pull them apart just a little bit more so that we can start to do some things for those individual age groups that we just need to do. For instance, when middle school goes off and has their brief time together before they split into small groups, it's going to be more of a game to kind of get some energy out of them. And then we're going to share a devotional thought that those students are going to hear and then be able to discuss in their small groups. That's also a change from last year. Last year, we gave the small group leaders pretty much everything. So they had to teach and lead discussion and do everything else that a small group does on those hours on Sunday nights. But this year, it's going to be kind of care for each other as a small group and discuss what was talked about in the brief devotion at the very beginning. And so middle school will have a longer time at that beginning because we want them to have some time together, but also honestly run some energy out at the very beginning. And so they'll have about 40 to 45 minutes in their small groups. And then high school at the opposite side of the church, running simultaneously, we'll have a shorter time up front. So we'll do an icebreaker and things like that to kind of keep it fun and lighthearted and things like that. But then we'll have that devotion for them as well. And then they'll go off, but they'll still have closer to like an hour in their small group. So not only will they have more time to discuss things and spend time in a small group because they're having close to an hour in that group, but also because their small group leaders are no longer teaching. They're taking the devotion that was shared at the very beginning and then jumping off into application and further discussion in their groups. And so what we found actually was last year we ended the school year with a video series just to try it out, just to also give our small group leaders a little bit more of a break. And we all watched that together, and it was a great series. And it was we watched it on Right Now Media, and when we did that, talking with our leaders, they really appreciated not having to prepare a full lesson every week, and so they were able to just kind of dig into the application and further discussion. So we kind of took that to heart and decided, hey, let's do that again. It's also going to help us with alignment, a lot more of our alignment of the groups, to kind of just start off on the same page every night. And so this will also, an added benefit to all of this is going to be able to give us the opportunity to allow more people to try speaking. And so we have a lot of leaders that just don't feel comfortable giving, a 15, 20-minute, message on a large group worship night with all the students there. But they may be able to, feel comfortable giving like a 7 or 8 minute devotional thought with like one scripture, one point that will then send those students off into their small groups. And so I'm really excited about getting more and more students and our leaders, students as well, involved in the speaking on those small group nights, because it's just a lot. The entry point is so much easier and simpler for that to happen. So that's kind of what this school year is going to look like. We're actually starting off, though, with 4 large groups in a row, because we're going to be putting a lot more emphasis on leadership development this school year with all of our leaders. It's actually something that's happening church-wide. And so we have additional leadership trainings that are happening in the month of September. And so that led me to just decide, in addition to wanting to start on the same page and start with excitement with large groups, I also didn't want to put added things with leadership trainings and development meetings. And then also every week they had to prepare for their small groups and everything. So we're actually going to do large groups throughout the month of September every week, and then the first week of October, and then we'll start small groups the rest. And so October, November, December, and so forth are going to be following the example that I said earlier, with large group on the first week of the month, small groups the rest of the weeks. But we decided to do something different just for September only. And that's really exciting for me to do the leadership development stuff as well. It's one of the big areas that we're going to be focusing on this year. We are going to be really ramping up our recruiting. We've already added a number of leaders to our team already, which is really exciting. And we're going to be bumping up the training. We're going to be using Download Youth Ministries Youth Ministry University this year, and a whole lot more things. We're going to be adding in a monthly gathering for our leaders to come together for mutual encouragement and sharing stories, celebrating together, praying together as well. And so I'm really excited about all the leadership development and team development that we're going to be doing this year. And then, adding some more opportunities for people to get involved, and guest experience roles and large group only kind of roles, and a bunch of different things that we're going to be adding this year. So really, really excited about all of those things. One of the things that I wanted to share, though, in terms of a story. So that's all the kind of programming updates and where we're going to be this school year. But I wanted to share a story, and some of you maybe have already read this on my blog at stevecullum.com. But I did want to share just something that was really, really cool that happened with a student this summer, and just kind of, I don't know, it reminded me of why I have the hobbies that I do, and why I'm okay with still dabbling in those hobbies and things like that. So if you don't know, most of you probably do know at this point, but I'm really into video games. I've been a video game fan ever since I was probably like 4 or 5 years old. Got hooked on the Atari 2600 playing Pitfall and other games with my cousin, and then got connected with arcades and the first NES and all those different things. and really just love the hobby and the entertainment and all that stuff from video games. And it's something that I really got into during college and after college. And so that's kind of like what I do. I help out with running another video game podcast called the Nintendo Fuse podcast. That is not ministry related at all. It's just a couple of guys that we get together on a regular basis and talk about Nintendo and the games and news and things like that. And it's been really cool to just like explore that world as a hobby. It also gets me outside the church and all those different things. But the reason I tell you all that today is because this summer I had a middle school student that randomly just, I think it was his mom probably, that filled out our church's online form that shared that he wanted to get baptized. And I didn't recognize the name right away. I checked him out in our church's like database system and our camps and all those different things, and I couldn't find him anywhere in our system. And so realized he's probably just a new student. And so I scheduled a time to meet up with him and his mom and talk and just hear his story and what he's been going through and what led him to the point where he wants to get baptized, ask him any questions and things like that, and see if I can, further explain all those different things that I'm sure most of us do when a student is interested in following Jesus and wanting to get baptized. And so when we first met up, I noticed that he had a Super Mario Brothers shirt on, which was awesome. And so we go and talk, and we sit down by the baptistry in our worship center, and we start to talk, and I was trying to get his story and hear him, and he was just incredibly quiet, like not wanting to talk at all. In fact, kind of whispering to his mom things that he wanted to say to me, but just wasn't comfortable talking out loud at all. And I'd ask him questions about why he wanted to get baptized. I'd ask him all these different things, and which just kept striking out time after time. And so his mom and I talked a little bit, and finally, I just leaned into the video game thing, and I said, "Hey, what's your favorite Mario game?" And that's the point when things changed. I finally heard his voice for the first time. And he said something like, "Well, I haven't played many, but I like," and he started going. And honestly, for the next like 20 minutes, we talked about Mario. We talked about Zelda and Pokemon and Smash Brothers and so many other games. And in fact, it was actually hard for me to find that time where I was able to kind of find an opening to move back to the subject of baptism, because he just kept talking. I couldn't even like find an opening in there, which was awesome. And so the great thing for me was that I actually knew what he was talking about, because I played games like Mario and Zelda and Pokemon, Smash Brothers. And so I didn't have to ask for clarification most of the time, which is okay if you do, but it was really cool to just go there in the conversation, so that by the end of our time together, he was actually asking me to baptize him. And so I'm going to be baptizing him in next month, in October, and really excited about that. And that reminded me of a story from my last church. I think I've told this on a previous podcast as well, but I used to host video game nights for some of our high school guys. And I told them they could come over, eat my food, hang out, but they had to bring at least one non-churched friend with them. And one of those guys that they brought, I think it was the very first time, ended up getting involved in our youth group, very involved, went on mission trips with us. And right before I moved from that church to my current church, I was actually able to baptize him. So it's been really awesome that God's been able to just kind of open doors and give me opportunities. And so my encouragement to you all, in the middle of, trying to figure out programming and trying to figure out what is going to work and how to actually shape things for the school year and what you're going to talk about every week and all those different things that we can easily get overwhelmed with. Don't forget to explore those hobbies and those other ways that God can use you to connect with students, adults, anybody. And just wanted to share that with you all, and in addition to our programming updates. One of the other cool things that and I'm really excited about for this year really is
our guest experience and other roles that we are able to add. And so I'll probably be giving you guys some updates on some of those things as well. We've had so many new students, and I don't say that to brag or anything like that, but it's just the state that we're in. And one of those things that we're trying to do and we need to do is kind of close the back door, if you know what I mean. And so trying to develop some better systems in place to greet those new students, get them connected so that they don't just come once or twice and then they leave and we never see them again. And so that's one of the things I'm really excited about, in addition to leadership development that we're going to be doing this year as well. I think that's pretty much it for the updates and the story that I wanted to share. I also want to let you know that this really coming up really soon, I'm going to be a guest on the Youth Ministry Mavericks podcast. So be sure to check that out as well. On that podcast, I talk with the host, Jeff, about being adaptive in ministry. And that includes being adaptive when you move to a new ministry, a different context, but it's also about constantly being adaptive and exploring how the culture is changing, how students are changing, and all those different things. And so I encourage you to check that out. It's not out as of this recording right now, but if you subscribe to the Youth Ministry Mavericks podcast, you'll get that as soon as it goes live. And I'll also post it on my social media and the Student Ministry Podcast social media as well. So if you're not subscribed to any of those different places, if you're not following us or liking us or whatever the social media requires of that, make sure you check that out. All of those links are going to be in the show notes of the podcast. And be sure to check those out along with our sponsors. We are so grateful that we have these sponsors of the Student Ministry Podcast. And we just encourage you to check them out. Be sure to head over to gshades.org to download season 3 of G-Shades Youth Ministry Curriculum, and definitely use the promo code TSMPOD at checkout to receive a discount off your order. We also want to thank MinHub again for sponsoring this episode. Head over to minhubsync.com/SMP. That's minhubsync.com/SMP. That's for Student Ministry Podcast. And not only can you sign up for their service, their synchronization service, but you're also going to be supporting the Student Ministry Podcast when you do that. So thanks so much to G-Shades and MinHub for sponsoring this episode of the Student Ministry Podcast. Well, that brings us to the end of episode 72. Thank you all so much for being here, and thanks for just tuning in every month, sometimes more than that. I'm pretty excited about those times when we are able to get more interviews. And if you have some people that you'd like to see us get on this podcast, be sure to let us know. Send us a message on social media, send us an email, all those different things. You can just get that word over to us, and we'll try to do our best to get more stories on in the future. But thank you all so much for being here for episode 72. And until we talk again, may God bless your ministry.